Hey, what's going on, everybody? I promised you guys a compost tea video, and here it is. Everyone needs to be feeding as much as they can, and that is kind of all revolves around compost tea. So, what do we have here? We have a trough. This is a 70-gallon trough. I actually prefer 100, but this is what I'm working with right now. Right there, you'll notice, ooh, watch out. You'll notice actually something called a sump pump. There's another one right there. Now, the reason why I have two sump pumps, you're like, why would you need two? Well, one right here has an arm attached to it. This is a PVC arm that comes up, has 290 degrees, and it aims back down onto itself. Now, the other one has a tube coming out of it. Well, let me follow that around. I'll show you guys what's up. It actually got pulled out, but this is where it heads to. It heads to this little trough right here. Excuse me, cylinder. So, this cylinder is how I dilute. So we'll get to that here in a minute, but that's where it heads to. So back over here. So, we got a fan going. It's not the best, but that's what it is. So, the idea here is that you basically want to keep this an aerated mix. If you don't keep an aerated mix, what you're going to have problems with is all kinds of bacteria killing your roots off, and that sucks. There's one more part I didn't actually show. What's in this cylinder? Well, this cylinder is full of, well, that's actually floating perlite because I threw some soil in there, but this is actually, that's our anaerobic mix. So our anaerobic mix is really important because essentially it feeds the aerobic mix. The idea being certain nutrients, especially nitrogen, decompose in aerobic mixes. However, like I just said, you have to be careful about feeding your roots anaerobic bacteria because they'll kill them. So what you do is you play off of the anaerobic to the aerobic. So we're going to go through just like some normal kind of maintenance and operation of this. So you want this pump pumping every single day. Ideally, you can have this pump over here on the right, the one with the arm. That one. That one, not to be confused with that one. Talk about this one. So you want this one with the arm on it pumping every single day. I like to usually have it pump about, let's say 30 minutes is ideal. 10 minutes is a little, it's closer to the minimum, although you could probably in a pinch just do it for 4 or 5 minutes and it will be actually alright. However, when you're feeding the anaerobic to the aerobic, so I'm taking scoops of this and putting in this, it's gonna, the less aeration through this pump right here that you have, the longer you're gonna have to wait until you can feed it safely, and the more you're gonna have to dilute in that cylinder that I just showed you. So as far as operation goes, the big problems are what you see right here. So you see all these plants kind of actually go nuts and they start growing in. I weeded a bunch of it, but you can see how it's all growing into the trough. That's bad. We don't want any of that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to weed around the trough to clean it up. The second thing that happens, and I'm going to show you here in a second, is this pump right here to the right. See, it has a kind of a something around it. that is actually a strainer. So one of the big problems with it is that it pumps and it pulls everything in it, and if there's any particulate, any particles, they get sucked in there, and so that strainer has to constantly, I mean on a daily basis, be cleaned. I'm going to show you how to do both of those. First off, let's weed it. So I'm going to set you up right here, and so we're going to weed. Now you probably can't see this right here. That's a tree, so I'm not going to weed that. Definitely don't want to lose you in the compost heap. Alright. As you can see, much better looking, much less weeds. So then, the second part. The second part's a little bit more tricky. I'll set you up over here so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so the second part's going to involve this aperture. Let me see if you can see. Let me. It's better. All right. So I'll go this right here. So this right here is actually kind of loose against this. This T-post holds it from it kicking out and splashing all over the place. But this isn't attached to this solidly, so I'm able to kind of get at it still and move it around. So the idea is I'm going to get some gloves on and clean out all the stuff down there. Sorry. And see you in a second. Hello again. Alright. Look at these. I don't like getting compost tea on me, as you might... Whoa, sorry about that. I almost knocked that over. As you might be able to tell. Now here's a tool that I like using. This is just a basket. I use it to strain. You might not be able to tell right in the shot, but you get little stuff in there, you knock it out. And then as for this, there's some grates around the bottom that get stuff like this. That's what you want to get rid of. See it all? Not good. Now, take the skimmer and skim the top. I'm gonna take my glove off so you can get a shot of what I'm talking about. Alright, so you see all those goobers? We want to just take the skimmer, skim it out like so. Now this part, it's not important to get all of it. You just want to get the big stuff. That's looking pretty good. There's a couple leaves over there. Knock it out. You got a clean skimmer. Here's some hemp that we got going on. Talk about that in another video. Alright. Now, we have quite a few foxtails in here. Foxtails aren't the biggest deal. But the more often you do this and the more thorough you are, the less you're going to have to do it, which is always fun. So, we knock this out. So, now you're probably wondering, where do I get these things called sump pumps? Sump pumps, they're not that hard to get. I'm going to show in the description, I'm going to put a link up. I'll put a screen grab of the pump. I buy them at Harbor Freight. You can get them probably anywhere. They're really common, usually about $100. Harbor Freight has a pretty good deal, about $60. Last time I bought them was like 3 or 4 years ago, so might have changed. And then, so as far as the maintenance is concerned, let's show you guys how it operates. So, I have it coming through a power cord, you can see right there, into the house, going to a timer, you can see right there. Now, what I like to do is put the timer on for 5-minute intervals, about five times, maybe 6 times a day. That seems to work really well. It keeps it at constant aeration, and once you're ahead of everything on the particles inside your tea, your aerobic trough, you'll be good. So let me set you guys up back further so you don't get splashed on, and you'll see me turn it on and it'll start running. So here you go.
This is too much. With all the money in the world, you could never buy this girl quite enough. It will be tight. If romancing me with neons is something you should do, make the letters bright and luminous and blue, and get me waking up, shaking up, tangled up.
That's the magic right there, everybody. So, you notice that it's placed on one end. That's actually fairly important. Another thing that you're going to want to notice is, and they're probably a little tougher to see now, but there's cinder blocks in there that basically stop the sediment from this side of the pool going on to this side of the pool where the sump pump is actually pulling the water from. That's fairly important. It's not completely important that you have that, but I've tried it all different ways. That seems to work pretty well. Now you notice that it's not actually pumping quite as much as it did in the beginning. And that's the reason for that is there's some loose particles, leaves and such, they got sucked towards the pump. So the best way to deal with it is as follows. You actually leave it running, and that, I know that's going to horrify some of you, but you leave it running, and then you get your gloves out, and you pull the sediment that's clogging it out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for you right now.
Потому что у блядей на покупку Bigoudi у порядочных людей все уходит на блядей. Сам себе нет, возле каждого куста, самый насыдавушка. Жил в деревне старый дед, делал сам себе минет, возле каждого куста, самый насыдавушка. Потому что у блядей на покупку Bigoudi у порядочных людей все уходит на блядей. Потому что у блядей.
So, you notice a couple things. You might have seen it, but I got some tea in my face. That's just how it goes down. The other thing is I rigged a little splash guard there. That's my own kind of invention. I guess like all of this is. I haven't picked this up from anybody or figured it all out myself. And the splash guard helps. Now, if you leave it on for very long, you notice that you're getting quite a bit of moisture over there, and you will splash out. Now, I'm not too concerned about that. The main reason is twofold. One, what I put in this blue cylinder right here, very cheap. The second reason is that most people won't tell you this, but the recent studies of microhorizontal networks has shown that you can feed well beyond 50, 60 feet. When you feed anything, the microhorizons then transport those nutrients maybe even over 100 feet away. Who knows? It's much more. They tested, I think, at 60 feet. through doing some isotope feeding, and they found that it definitely goes that far. So it could be as high as 100 or 200 feet. We really don't know. So feeding the area around your garden is actually not a bad thing. That's part of the reason why you want to use this method, is because the aggregate amount of feed that you lay down with this method is far and above anything else. And you're taking advantage of something called, forgive me, I'll think of it, nitrogen fixation. So nitrogen fixation is where any legume root system or the legume itself breaks down in the soil, and those micro horizons build these bacteria that then put nitrogen back into the soil. You probably have heard this before, but if you'll notice, I have very healthy weeds back here. Like, that's horehound, that's all volunteer stuff. Like, you know, these are taller than the rose bushes. I don't know what that is, that's some native plants. But everything around here does really well. Look at my roses. Like, you know, that's a tall rose bush. I'm almost 7 feet tall, and that thing's way taller than me. So you get really good results when you feed around here. Those are irises kind of being drowned out. They're huge. So everything around the compost tea area really likes it. And that's one of the things I noticed. So when I feed a lot everywhere, and that's one of the secrets to success in all of this. So as you noticed, thing's been running a little while. I'm going to let it keep running, but it's harder to see those cinder blocks. You notice that? And that's because there's more of a homogeneous mixture going on. You can kind of tell coming out it's a lot browner, and that's doing its job. It's mixing it up. Now you're probably gonna ask, what do you put in here? There's actually two things that go in there. Well, way more than two things, but two main things. First of which is pelletized, and it's important to do this, pelletized alfalfa. I can get alfalfa easily. A lot of you in the south can get kudzu. Kudzu works amazingly well. It's part of the legume family. But if you can't get kudzu, go with alfalfa, and the fresh stuff is better. Now, I also put in steer manure or dairy cow manure. You can also substitute that with anything besides chicken manure, unless your chicken manure is like 2 or 3 years old, and use it sparingly. But you're better off with 4-chamber stomach animals, ruminants. I'd go with goats, horses, things of that nature. Cows are your best friend. If you can get anything related to cows, bison also works. So I'm going to keep cleaning this out, and in a nutshell, that's the setup. Now, I am going to show you guys, probably in some future videos, I'm going to go into more depth about how the dilution works and how to actually apply it. I'm also going to show you how to pull this off in a much more rudimentary setup. You can do all this actually inside of just a 5-gallon bucket, and you still have your anaerobic, you still have your aerobic, you still have your play between. And I'm also going to dip into what microhorizons are and why you want to feed those early on, which is right now. When you're planting, a little bit after you're planting, you want to feed your microhorizons. Microhorizons take about 3 months to establish, so it's almost too late in some senses. You kind of really want to be doing this in the wintertime, but for sure get your microhorizons down before the spring. And if you're feeding your microhorizons towards the end, say anything later than the middle end of July, you're basically setting yourself up for next year, but you're not doing much for this year. So that's it, and I guess I'll see you guys in the next video. Like and subscribe and all that jazz, and peace.
Wish I had a mango tree. heart.